So, David, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, lovely to see you again, mate.
Likewise, I always love our conversations. I mean, as far as Brummies go, I think you've got to be one of the funniest Brummies I've ever met in my life. It is just, in fact, I say funniest Brummies. I think you're actually one of the funniest speakers I've ever met in my life. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this episode.
Oh, Jasper Carrot, eat your heart out. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this as well, Will. I mean, you do good work with business owners and business leaders, and I know that you're purpose-driven, mate, a bit like me, so really looking forward to this.
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, I mean, that's maybe a really great place to start. So you've been doing this work and working in sort of the personal development space for some time now. I mean, this isn't your first gig, let's put it that way. So how long is it now that you've been sort of operating in this space?
I've been a researcher for 22 years and a professional speaker now for 20 years full time.
Yeah, and we're going to touch a little bit about on your speaking side of things in a moment, but I actually want to start with the researcher piece because this is what I think is really, really interesting. A lot of speakers.
Peakers are better, mate. Peakers are better. Peaky Blinders, you see, from Birmingham.
Exactly. A lot of speakers they are in this reason, they've got their reason. And one of the things that I love touching on these podcast episodes is the reason why people got into the work that they did. Obviously, you've been a speaker for many, many years now and a fantastic one at that. But it started with research, I'm right in saying.
Yeah, I was a chef. I had a little catering and event management business. It was doing all right, don't get me wrong, but sadly, I realised that I was holding it back. I was a micromanager. I wouldn't delegate. Basically, I was a control freak. And we were very good at what we did because of that, but we weren't growing. I wasn't growing the business. I was working in it instead of on it, old school. I started as a hobby, interviewing really successful customers, you know, the who's who, entrepreneurs, captains of industry, football club managers, la-di-da. And I got obsessed with what they were telling me, Will, because it was different to anything I'd ever read in a book, anything I'd ever been exposed to on a business management training course. And the more I realized that they were consistently saying the same things, but it was contrary to what's being traditionally taught, I thought, you know, who's got it right? People doing that stuff or people out there achieving big? So I took the plunge and started to formalize my research. Now, 22 years later, I've had the privilege and honour and good fortune to have travelled the world and have interviewed 258 top achievers from all walks of life you could possibly imagine.
So let's can we name drop some of these top achievers?
Yeah, I mean, frequently, some people in the industries that I'm going to talk about have heard of these people. Sometimes the names won't mean anything to you, but if I tell you what you did, you'd go. So if you name drop, let's say, okay, sport. Dennis Amiss, one of England's most successful cricketers. The late, great Willie Thorne, who was the first person to do a 147 witnessed break. The people like Emlyn Hughes at the time of interview was England's highest trophy winning footballer. In the world of business, let's have a think. People like... I mean, my mind's gone blank, mate. I've got I've interviewed the European marketing director for Nike. I've interviewed oh crikey. I mean, okay.
Rather than name drop, because the names are irrelevant, really.
Neuroscientists, psychologists, scientists, inventors, academics, engineers, authors, rock stars. You know, Billy Joel, for example. You know, Elton John. Well, I've interviewed Elton John. He knocked me to the ground, and his bouncer knocked me to the ground, and Elton John brushed me down, and I managed to grab him for a bit. But I've interviewed global best-selling authors, actors, actresses, rock stars, scientists, you name it. I've interviewed them, and the culmination of the research is colossal. But the thing that matters the most is the consistent threads. And the fact that the people who have overcome the most and achieved the most tend to think in exactly the same way as each other. And that's why I then take that research, and once we proved the models that we created wrapped around it, that's why I love working with the two most challenging audiences in the world: chief executives, business owners, and young adults in high schools, because they're both absolutely ferociously hungry for new information, but they're more likely to apply it, use it, and make a difference than the people in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting actually, and we're going to touch on that in a moment. And just to give some scope, so obviously from a researching perspective, some incredible captains of industry, as you put it. But then in terms of impact, I mean, I'm right in saying it's over 1 million people that you personally have presented to now over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, about 2/3 of them young adults, but globally, 16 countries, well over 1 million people. It was 1 million in January this year. Yeah,
incredible achievement,
and about another 200,000 online in the last 5 months.
Yeah, I can understand that one. And for anybody that's wondering why that might be the case, we're recording this 4 months into coronavirus. Yeah, I mean, some incredible achievements. Now, one of the things that I've become obsessed with, and from as early as I can remember, sort of when I suppose as early as I can remember, probably from when I was about 11 or 12 years old, one of the things I started to do was I started to look at people that were successful. And my own blueprint for success was always, right, look at all the people that are achieving great things, take all of their best bits, mix it with a blend of my own personality, and then I can become better. You know, that has been my own blueprint, self-learned blueprint, that nowadays, having studied NLP, I know that to be modeling and incorporating all these different things. And it's interesting, you mentioned that there was common threads, regardless whether they were scientists, rock stars, whoever it might have been, sports stars, there'll be common threads that come throughout those people. And that's what I'm really curious to know. What are those common threads? What have you found in 20 years plus of research have been the difference that's made the difference with the successful, however, obviously one might define success?
Well, there's loads and loads of good news, and I'll share that in just one sec. But there's one thing that actually makes people go, oh, when I tell them, which is the biggest common thread out, a lot of them will, is that they're normal human beings. You know, they're just blokes and women, just like you and I. Well, I'm a bloke, and sorry, I couldn't resist that. They're just normal human beings. They still get headaches, crash the car, argue with their siblings, and break wind inappropriately and blame the dog. They're just human beings. They screw up, they trip up, they stumble, they fall. But when they are absolutely focused to what they want to do and achieve and have in life, they will think and behave differently to everyone else fearlessly. And that's a word I've only started using in the last year or two. They do it fearlessly, without any account whatsoever for what other people think of them for thinking and behaving the way they do. In the words of, see, now names are coming back to me, in the names of the great inventor Trevor Bayliss. Trevor Bayliss said, but this makes me more effective. Why would I care or worry what people think of me? Yeah, just why would I? I don't care what people think. I'm doing this, I love it. So they're human beings. We must really get into our heads that if therefore somebody out there in any capacity on the planet has already done what it is you want to do, it is already therefore realistic and achievable. And that's going to hurt a lot of people watching this. It is realistic and achievable that we can do whatever it is you want to do because it's already been done. There will be a few exceptions where maybe it hasn't, in which case someone for the first time has to do it. That said, let's look at some of the positive commonalities that you're so eager to hear about. Well, one of the things which is much talked about at the moment, it used to be dismissed as fluffy, woolly nonsense, but it's big news at the moment. And that's the subject of purpose, having a why. And there are several speakers out there who are big into talking about your core values should determine your purpose. Here's another name drop for you. Professor Adrian Furnham, Europe's leading business psychologist by any measurement, Will. In fact, Will, if you and I was to sit next to him, we'd get clever through osmosis, right? He oozes IQ, this bloke. And he says, Dave, everyone talks about core values, which is okay. He says, but as human beings, we're two things, not just core values. We are also our insecurities. So what do you mean? He says, well, if you make a decision, a huge personal or business decision based only on your core values, he said, you might get it, but chances are on the way to achieving that, your insecurities are going to crop up. You know, the things that get in your face a little bit when things go wrong. And then we use an excuse to say, oh, well, at least I had a go, and we give in and walk away. Either that or our core values get compromised, our insecurities crop up, they combine, and it's a total car crash. So he said, what you must do is to define what's right for you as a human being to be doing, and we're all different, is to understand your values, understand your insecurities, and do things massively where your values are met and your insecurities are satisfied. I said, hey, doesn't that mean you're giving in to your weaknesses? He went, yeah. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, hold on a minute. You know, you are seriously suggesting that we should give in to our weaknesses? He says, yeah. So there's only two reasons why you would do things if your insecurities are going to crop up. And that's number one, if you want it so badly, you're prepared to totally screw up along the way. He says, but he says, you still have a chance to overcome your insecurities. You could go and get therapy. He says, but then quick as a breath, he went, but how many blokes are going to do that then? He says, most of us are afraid of actually finding out the truth. And so we push down our insecurities and then wonder why when the proverbial hits the fan, it blows up and causes us problems. So he said, you must only do things where your insecurities are going to be satisfied, not even show up. You must do things where your values are met. If your values are compromised or insecurities are going to crop up, you're screwed. So top achievers, they have a purpose, well, but this is the statement I use. This is David Hyner's version of what I see in these top achievers, okay, guys? They have a reason to achieve what they want that is bigger than their fear of failure or insecurities. So if you've got a reason to do something, and notice the word I'm stressing there, the reason, the cause, the raison d'etre, it's not the running the marathon, because I know you're into your endurance events. Well, what's your big event that you got, the next thing you're going to do?
You know what? I would like to have said it would have been another Tough Mudder this year, but coronavirus has got in the way of that one, so that's not happening again. But yeah, no, I'm keen at sort of the outdoor events. I like a challenge, that's for sure.
Well, let's just say Will wants to go and do the Marathon des Sables, you know, that massive endurance, horrific event in the desert. And for him, I could tell by his body language that would be a big step there. So, well, not for him, easily. So Will would set out training for this event, and he might do the training, he might get to the desert, and he might do the event, but it'd be really hard work. However, halfway through the training, if it's a cold, wet December Sunday morning at 5 a.m. and the alarm goes off and it's chucking it down and freezing and jet black outside, you might be tempted to hit snooze, pull the duvet over and roll over and have a kip. If Will has got a reason why he must do that marathon, so he might do it for a cause that burns in his heart. It might be to justify something within himself or to serve somebody else. It might be, I don't know, that there's the person he loves the most at the other end at the finish line and he's got to get there. So there's got to be a reason why that you must achieve big, personally and professionally, that's bigger than your fears. If you've got that, you'll be indestructible. Can I give you an example, Will?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Very first time, I mean, you're looking at me, an average little fat guy from Birmingham, right? Up until the age of 30, you're looking at someone who strived for and achieved nothing at all. I was so average, I offended myself. The very first time it clicked with me, 3 years into the research, that top achievers were setting massive goals. And if you remind us, we'll go there next, Will. Massive goals, not realistic and achievable goals, another common thread. It dawned on me that I needed to step up. So I went to a charity in Birmingham called the CRAB Appeal. CRAB stands for CRAB, Cancer Research at Birmingham. And I said, I want to do one event for you, hopefully raise a lot of money, proving that massive goals works. And they laughed me out the room, Will. They said, you're on your own, you've only got your spare time, you've never fundraised for charity using an unproven process, and 7 of us, well-connected people, took 6 months to raise 48 grand in one event. You want to do it 50 in one. And I kind of went, yeah. And the chairman sat at the end of this really long boardroom table at British Telecom headquarters in Brindley Place, Birmingham, put his glasses on the end of his nose, looked over the top and went, with respect, young man. We all know what that means. He said, you're on your own. Sorry. Thank you for showing an interest in cancer research. Goodbye. And I was being shown out the door. Now, could you imagine my ego? Well, I mean, it was like someone stick a pin in my balloon, and I was dragging my ego in a sack on the floor behind me as I walked down. Will, have you had a moment when one person believes in you and that's all you need?
Yeah, powerful.
Isn't it? These crucible moments, and I want you to look out for them or even make them, engineer them for yourself. Find a crucible moment that when that happens, no more excuses. As my friend Sat Sembi says, the entrepreneur. So the names are coming back now. Sat Sembi, the entrepreneur, says, no excuses. Get to a point where you've got no more excuses. And this guy came up to me and says, I think it'll happen. I grabbed him and we went for a cup of tea. It was a beer. And we drew a pyramid, right? The goal setting process that I talk about is in a little triangle called a pyramid. And don't worry, it's not pyramid selling, right? And we set out to raise 50 grand. We didn't. We totally failed. We only raised over $250,000. We raised £288,000 in our first event, and in numerous other events over the next 15 years. I think I've raised well over $750,000 now, breaking 4 charity fundraising records in the process. We've had people just like us will go out and become Amazon best-selling authors, millionaires in business. People get mentored by Barack Obama. I kid you not. We've had...
You're going to go through that story because I love that story. I absolutely love that story.
I'll happily sell that later if you remind me, yeah.
And just to interject there, so sorry to interrupt, but that's all because all those things that you're talking about is because they set these big goals that they had a strong enough purpose behind it so that they could therefore not allow the what was the term that you used for sort of self-doubt?
Excuses and insecurities.
Insecurities, that was it. The insecurities to overcome their values. So before we go into the Barack Obama stories and everything else, 1 million people researching for 23 years, £250,000 raised for charity, speaking to schools all over the country. Was it 17 countries that you mentioned? 250?
16, yeah.
Countries. What's your why?
Oh, good one. I've actually, I encourage people to create themselves a little statement, and your why must be like a little, I say must be. What I suggest is that you have a little statement that defines who you are, so that it includes your core values and your insecurities, so that you can look at any opportunity, and just by looking at that opportunity, you will know whether or not you can be this person by doing it. And if you can't be, don't go there. So you want to know what this says?
But before we do it, so for the purposes that people that are listening to this on Spotify and iTunes and any other podcast platform, David actually just reached into his pocket, grabbed out his wallet and took out a business card size piece of card or paper. And I'd love to know what it says on it. Okay.
Now, this is only relevant to me. Everybody's purpose I've ever worked with, and I've worked with everything from kids in high schools right up to a billionaire on this subject. I had a billionaire in tears in my office working through purpose. These words will mean nothing to you. In fact, some of you might dismiss it as fluffy, woolly semantics. Actually, this is who David Hyner is. I know whether or not I should be doing things because I can be this person or I don't do it. I've turned down work because I can't be this person by doing that piece of work, for example. So my purpose is to inspire myself and others by sharing and living my message, to be an outstanding role model to my son and to my best friend to my family and wife, to seek adventure, happiness, fun and love in everything I do, and to serve others as best I can. If I cannot be that person, I don't do it. Doesn't matter what it is. I just don't do it. So they're purpose driven. They have massive goals, and they have an ability to step out their comfort zone without fear of what other people think of them. They have what I call a bit of a rhinoceros attitude, and they don't necessarily hang around with cows anymore. They charge at things well. But can I talk about massive goals?
Well, that's where I was going to go to with this. So there's an acronym that you like to use for massive goals, right?
Is there?
Well, I suppose the first time I heard you talk about it was big, hairy, audacious goals was sort of.
Oh, well, okay. Another name drop. One of the wealthiest men in our country, in the United Kingdom, is a guy called Tim Watts. He started a little recruitment company that went on to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in Europe, called Pertemps. You get rich through osmosis sitting next to him, and he says I set big, fat, hairy goals. It was only later that I realised that was associated to somebody who wrote a book called BHAGs, Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals.
Yeah.
But he called them big, fat, hairy goals.
Okay.
And he said, I allow all of my senior team to set their own goals as long as they're big, fat, and hairy. And
the team or the goals?
For all I know, both. But massive goals, Will. Please, I know this is very selfish of me, but please indulge me. Everybody, without exception, listening to this, if you have been on any course, read any book, watched any video, heard any speaker on the subject of goal setting, you will have heard the two words always used and the acronym frequently used. The two words are realistic and achievable. The acronym is SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-focused. For decades, we human beings have been hardwired and programmed and told that our goals should be SMART. It's taught in the Institute of Leadership and Management. It's taught on the MBA. It's taught in virtually every business school I've ever looked at on the planet, including the big ones. And so you'd think it has credibility. I'm talking to everyone, but because Will's on the screen, Will, I'm going to beg you to do this, brother, right? I want you to go to anyone who ever suggests to anyone from now on in front of you that they should set SMART goals. Just ask them, what's that based on then? And they'll go, what do you mean? Go, where does SMART come from? And they'll go, well, it's the way to set goal. Do you know what? I have challenged hundreds of people over the years. Not one single person has ever been able to answer me. I'm a skeptical little brummie. I did my nose job. I did my knitting. I tracked them down. I stalked them, hunted them, went through their bins. And so I didn't go through any bins. But made crank phone calls, hung outside the house late at night, looking through the curtains, going, here's Will Polston. And, but I tracked him down, right? The guy's name was George T. Duran, and he was a very nice guy. He was a project manager in the United States, and he invented the acronym SMART. He invented the acronym SMART. Well, he's misquoted. I have read everything that guy wrote, and I've even seen the only video I've ever been able to find of him being interviewed in which he admitted he made it up. He actually said he's a water utilities project manager who works on multi-billion-dollar water utility projects. And he said the steps to your goal should be SMART. That's a difference. We are being told to set SMART goals Top achievers do not set SMART goals. 258 out of 258 top achievers I've interviewed, asking them the specific question, how do you set goals? Not one of them answered by going, oh, I set realistic and achievable goals. They all, without exception, said huge, enormous, big, fat, hairy. Massive was the most common word. That's why I teach massive goals well. In the words of the school playground in Birmingham, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Try and prove me wrong. I dare you. Do you know what happened to the last person who tried to prove me wrong, Will?
Yeah.
He became a global best-selling children's author, beating J.K. Rowling to Children's Book of the Year. Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. Really smart goals. See how far you get. Massive goals, realistic and achievable steps, purpose-driven. Let's bring it on. Let's bring it on.
Absolutely love that. On that note, so we're talking about these massive goals. I'd love for you to share with our listeners the President of the United States story.
Okay. Well, this actually links perfectly to what you asked me to start talking about. Sorry, I'll go off on one, mate. But you asked for another common link. Here's another common link and another name drop. Another common link is that they are not afraid of looking for two things in their life or business that most of us are fearful of. Okay, at the risk of challenging people, don't shoot the messenger, but most of us are afraid of asking for help because we think it's a sign of weakness. It's not. And most of us are afraid to seek accountability. In fact, we'd run away from anyone who tries to hold us accountable. If you're in a job, you'll do anything to get off the hook with the boss. If your life partner, husband or wife is having a go at you, you'll say anything just to get off the hook. You know, we are very, very good at running away from being held accountable. Very, very effective people realize that if they're going to get there quicker and make less mistakes, they have to get the right level of support and accountability. So they do one of two things that I've seen well. The first is what's called looking into. This was first taught to me by the legend in athletics that is called Chris Akabusi. Chris Akabusi, he's depending on your age, he's either a gold medal world champion for this country, God bless his heart, God bless his running vest, or he's a TV kids presenter, or he's a world-renowned motivational speaker and entrepreneur, who, by the way, is very, very underestimated. He's a critical thinker. He's one of the sharpest minds I've ever met. I said, Chris, what's the one thing you do differently to everyone else? What makes you more effective? And he says, Dave, I don't look up to people. I look into them. I went, mate, sounds good, but I'm from Birmingham. What does that mean? He said, Dave, if somebody's really, really good, like people on your mastermind groups, Will, they look into you because of your background in business and your level of success. Consistent success, I might add. So they look into you. Some people look up to you, and I bet you they don't get the same value as those who try to pick your brains. So we, as a race, are guilty of finding successful people, putting them up on a pedestal and going, wow, aren't you great? Instead of sitting them down, buying them a coffee and going, tell me how you think and behave. What do you do when you do that thing? And really, really looking into them. So I've shared this message, look into, not up to, Chrissy's quote, with nearly 1 million people. And my favourite story, as you've pointed out, Will, is a young lady from a high school in Worcestershire. She was a sixth former, and she was so timid and shy. And she came up to me after the event and went, David, I don't know if you can help me. And I went, no idea. She was really tall. I went, no idea. She says, I don't know what to do. I says, why? What is it you want to go into? She went, international politics. Now, I can't help myself. You know, I tell people to stop making assumptions. What was I doing? I mean, I more or less laughed in her face. I assumed, bad thing, I assumed that she wasn't confident enough to go into politics. She'd get chewed up and spat out. Once I realised what I was doing, I said, I'm so sorry, forgive me. Why don't you do what Chris and the other top achievers say? Set yourself a massive goal, but go and look into someone who is doing what you want to do, but at the very highest level. Speak to a politician. She went, me? Speak to a politician? I went, yes. She went, okay. And she walked off. I have that effect on women. And I heard nothing for weeks, mate. And then later on, I had a phone call, and it was the head teacher, head of sixth form at the school. And he said, not only did she receive a 2-page handwritten letter from Barack Obama at the White House, but to their knowledge at the White House, she was the first international student to agree to be coached and mentored by a serving president. Is that going to look good on a UCAS application form? Yeah, and that is just one of hundreds of examples I've got of entrepreneurs, captains of industry, people who have become world sporting, European and British sporting champions. People have got looked into authors to be mentored. I mean, that's all I did. I can remember my English teacher, God bless her, Miss Aldrett, who said, David, you're never going to write a book, are you? Well, I've written 30, published 100, 5 number ones in their category. And all I did was track down a global best-selling author, pick their brains over a glass of Chardonnay and go, tell me how you do it, mate. That's it. Mountaineers. Look at me. I'm a chunky monkey. I'm built for comfort, not speed. But I asked Sir Chris Bonington. I interviewed Sir Chris Bonington, the mountaineer. He was the nicest bloke on the planet, by the way. So, he couldn't offend anyone if he wanted to. He's lovely. And he gave me the most amazing advice on endurance trekking that enabled me to healthily and happily and successfully do endurance treks all over the world. We can do anything as long as we get the right information, Will. That's the key. Do not settle for average information from average books written by average people. Go and get your information from the very, very top. That's what you deserve. Go for it.
Absolutely love that. On that note then, so again, just first of all, it's incredible. I mean, that story about the girl in Barack Obama, I know it's just one of many, many people that have gone on to achieve great things, of people that have been inspired or worked with you in some capacity or another. But what I'm interested to know, David, is why? What I know originally you had this interest, you had your business and you wanted to learn more, but what is that renewable energy source that enables you to what? Because you read your mission statement, or however you refer to it, of the person that you are, that decides whether you take opportunities or not. But what's the reason behind that? What's the catalyst that means that you strive to research, learn, teach, motivate in the way that you do?
What I'm about to tell you, I've never told anyone before. For those that know me really well, probably won't be a surprise. But no one's ever asked me that before. And I'm, to a fault, I try to be honest. In the early days, what drove me was insecurities, because I didn't understand the purpose thing then. I was the kind of speaker, Will, that would rock up and do what I call the jazz hands, shiny suit, pointy fingers. Please like me, make me feel significant. Look at all the evaluation forms and ignore all the good ones just to find the one that said I was shit, And I was doing everything to feel good. Please like me. Once I got the purpose stuff in my head, I realized that actually you being liked and made to feel significant comes on the back of other people succeeding. So if you're full of please like me, you're not serving them. It's all about you. So all I did was flip the way I presented the information to, and don't get me wrong, I've still got insecurities. I'm a human being. But now, instead of walking on stage going, please like me, I walk on stage and I won't say the word because it's a bit naughty, but in my head, I look out at the audience and I go, you're having it. I am obsessed with serving the people in front of me, whether it's one-to-one in a coaching scenario, small group, or a massive audience at a conference. I am obsessed. I don't go to be liked. I go to make a difference. I am more interested. My fellow speaker and my friend Nigel Risner, he says, don't seek applause, seek results. If you seek results, you get applause, but for the right reason. any speaker worth their hat, if they've done their research, can manipulate an audience to get a standing ovation if they wanted to. Ball. What I want is 3 months after you've booed me sitting in the audience to send me an email, and I've got them in my emails, saying, you ain't going to believe what I've done, Dave. I owe you a beer. That's what I want legacy. I want, so the thing that drives me now, well, other than service to my wife and son, is to serve people. So theoretically, I might be able to touch another 1 million people before I retire. Do you know what? That's not legacy. Well, I suppose it's better than most people would get, but I want to reach 10 million. So I've got to massively shift my business and the way I operate to reach that many people. So I've got a whole new purpose now. So once you achieve a massive goal, all of a sudden that level is realistic and achievable. So you go, oh, where else can I go? And your goals just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So your purpose defines your goals. Not your goals define a purpose.
Completely agree. And first of all, thank you for sharing that. I know you said you've not done that before, but even my own, I wouldn't necessarily cast myself as a researcher, as an identity. I wouldn't label myself as that, but I suppose I am. I'm constantly on the lookout, right? What's the difference that makes the difference? What's the little nuances? I've become obsessed with learning, and it is an obsession around how success, however you define it, is how those people think. And I remember years ago, I had a goal, and my goal was I wanted to become the world's best life coach. And I sat down with a coach at the time, and he was coaching me, a very well-respected coach. And he said, "Will, that's not your purpose." And I said, no, it is. And this was only a discovery session I had with this guy. He told me how much it was to work with him. At the time, I just could not afford that. It was extortionate. And he said, that's not your purpose. And months later, I think it was 3 months later or 2 months later, I realized, actually, no, he's 100% right. That isn't my purpose. And I realized in that moment was that I'd been saying, I want to become the world's best life coach. It was all about me. What I actually meant was I wanted to empower other people. I set a goal of 1 million people. And I know I've shared this before on the show, is that then one day I was having a real tough time, and I said, how would I think differently if my goal wasn't empowering 1 million people, but empowering 1 billion people? And I said, well, I would do this and this differently. And I'd raise the bar. And I said, well, that's the goal then. That then becomes the goal. And look, I'm not naive enough, David, to think that I necessarily am going to work with 1 billion people. I may well do. I don't close myself off to that possibility. It may happen. But what I know is very possible is that I could work with 10 million people and reach 10 million people and impact 10 million people within my lifetime. If those 10 can impact 10 others and those 10 can impact 10 others, that's 1 billion hit, and it's keeping up that mind of possibility, is
or maybe after this call, I'll have a little chat with you about an opportunity to have your own TV show on the internet, mate.
Well, there we go. Yeah. It sounds very interesting. So as we sort of evolve, I know one of the real inspiration, something that drives you is, yes, you work with CEOs because they can make significant change and business owners. And then you mentioned sort of young people in schools and people that are in schools. So I'm curious where that drive comes from, of wanting to influence the younger generation.
Again, I have to be honest and say, originally it was from a place of insecurity, because I, like you, was looking into people, and top speakers used to joke with me when I was starting out and say, Dave, if you can hold I said, how do you know if you're good? That was the question I used to ask. How do you know if you're any good? And they used to joke, and one of them said, if you can hold the attention of teenagers for an hour, you're better than me. I went, okay. So I went into a school, walked in like Johnny Big Kahunas, and they killed me, Will. I mean, they chewed me up and they spat me out. Seriously, I was amazed my car wasn't on bricks when I got to the car park. It was one of the most horrific experiences of my life. I was dying as I walked out of that school, because I went there sort of demanding respect instead of gaining it. And that's when I first started to realise that actually it has to be about them. And I'll be honest, I didn't really like young adults at the time. But then we started getting results, and it doesn't take a lot for things to just go clickety click, turn, boom, totally on its tail. And I mean, the things we started teaching, the goal setting, the memory techniques. We teach memory techniques, and we had students in GCSEs go up by 4 grades in 4 weeks. We had students who were getting like old school C's and D's, going out with A's and A stars in 4 weeks and having fun doing it. And all we were doing, we weren't going, do this and tell us how good we were. We were going, come on, let's just have fun and see how high we can jump, guys. And you know, within 15 minutes of learning a memory technique, their improvement was colossal. And that gave them the confidence to go, what else can I do? Because there are too many speakers who all they do is talk at people instead of showing them how. And I'm going to urge everybody from now on, it doesn't matter whether it's in a book, on a video, on a training course, or listening to a speaker live or on a webinar, is to ask them questions that enables you to understand how they do what they do, not just listen and be inspired by what they've done. Find out how, ask awkward questions. That's where the gold dust is, guys. It's not in the CV. It's in their thoughts, feelings, and actions. Go dig in. Go dig in.
Love it. So the how. So on that note, sort of leading in really nicely, having got to know you as well as I have over the last couple of years, I believe that there is one how, which is one of many that you use to achieve your goals. Obviously, purpose is one that you've mentioned, but there's another one. And the other one that I know you're a big fan of is operating like a particular animal.
Do you know, Will, that was dead subtle, mate. I love that. That was yeah. Let me just hold. Am I allowed to hold a book up?
You can hold a book up. For people that aren't watching this on YouTube, I'll share what he's holding up, or you can describe it. It's up to you.
Okay, this is a book called Rhinoceros Success. It's by an author called Scott Alexander, who, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, he's crazy, right? He's nuts, this guy. I love him. It's a thin book with large print and lots of pictures of cows and rhinos in it. And I was advised by 7 people to read this book. I saw the title, flicked through and went, nah, dismissed it totally. Then, out of all of the books, and I mean every single book ever quoted by a top achiever, when I say, is there a book that's been a game changer for you, including biographies, autobiographies, business strategy, anything at all, this is the most common book quoted by top achievers as to, this is the book that changed my life. Peter Thompson, Mary Collin, you know, they go, Rhino time. They, you know, this is a crazy book. Also, there was a guy called Watkins, one of the pioneers of positive psychology. See, all the names are coming back to me now. One of the pioneers of positive psychology. He'd never read the book in his life, Will, and yet his research proved virtually everything in the book to be true. There's a happiness PhD called Andy Cope from The Art of Brilliance and The Art of Happiness. He came up with virtually identical stats to this guy as well. Let me explain. In the book, Scott says there are 2 types of animals, right? There are cows and there are rhinos. I'm sure there are others, but the 2 main animals are cows and rhinos. And what he suggested is that 97 to 98% of the time, most of us behave like cows. We hang around with people just like us because they make us feel significant and it's safe in the herd. I wonder how many of us, if we're honest, Will, or people listening to this, are guilty of hanging around with the same people all the time just because it's safe and easy. I said, Scott, explain. He says, Dave, people stand in a field doing the same thing they've always done, chewing grass, moo, milky, milky. I said, what? And he went, moo, milky, milky. I went, yeah, all right, I get it. Bad metaphor. Let's move on. He says, Dave, they look over the field. They see what they want. They want it, but they're scared of failure. So they don't even try. They want to. Their friends will laugh at them if they fail. They'll lose money, so they keep doing what they've always done: chew grass, moo, milky, milky, Will. And then they moan about it. They moan about it. I said, okay, cow's bad. What about the other 2 to 3%? He went, rhinos, Dave. I said, what do you mean? He says, rhinos. If they see what they want, what do? Charge. Rhinoceros. Rhinoceros? Not even animal. They are. They're better than rhinoceros. Rhinoceros, they see what they want and they go for it. They're not elephants. They don't tread on things and people to get what they want. Significant point to know. They charge at the target. They're a nurturing animal. They take people with them. They get a lot of abuse. I mean, they are an endangered animal after all. But if you've got a rhinoceros attitude, you charge at a goal. Here's the good news, Will. 97% of the time, we think and behave like that, safe. 3% of the time, all of us, without exception, have had moments of rhino. We've all had those moments. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. What if we don't enter the fluffy world of personal development and just go, hey, guys, all you got to do is think rhino and everything's brilliant and easy? No, that's ridiculous. I'm from Birmingham. Rubbish happens. We all have cow days. Would you agree? Stuff happens. Loss, bereavement, failure, everything. You know, there's so much rubbish in the world. What if we're real and we say, do you know what? 2 to 3% of the time, bad stuff's going to happen. Moo, milky, milky. Get over it. Instead of pushing it down and pretending it doesn't exist, why don't you just accept that's a reality? And then accept the reality that 97% of the time, we allow ourselves the luxury of mediocrity, when in fact, 97% of the time, we could be having more fun. When I tell young people or chief execs about some of the adventures I've had in my personal life, traveling the world and doing the things I've done, they go, I want to go on an adventure. I'll go, well, get out your armchair then. And they go, what? I go, well, you can't have an adventure in your armchair. Get out your armchair. Go and sign up for something. Next year, don't go for 2 weeks to Ibiza. Go and work in an African village. Go and trek the Great Wall of China, or go and do something with your life. Go shark swimming. By the way, if anyone wants to do a charity shark swim, get in touch. But you know, if you want to train to be a purpose or a massive goals coach, get in touch. Let's change the freaking world here. Or you can sit in your armchair with your TV dinner, watching the soap opera, then the news, and wondering why you're just not happy. Moo, milky, milky, Will. So what I'm asking people to do is recognize the 3 and the 97% rule and just be a little bit more rhino. Just be a little bit more rhino. Having it is what we should say, Will. Having it.
Love it. Absolutely love it. In terms of moving forward, right? Obviously, in these precarious times, there's been a lot of challenge, right? And there's still a lot of uncertainty. So for people right now that have maybe been having their 2 to 3% of the moment being a cow moment because of everything that's been going on, but they're getting to the point where they're at the end of their tether and they're now going, look, I wanna start changing. I want to become more rhino. What's your advice to them to become more rhino? How do you become more rhino?
Start. Find something you've always wanted to do. You know you can do it. You've just been afraid to take the leap, and go and do some research on it. Most people, when they come to me and say, Dave, I don't know what my massive goal is, within 30 seconds, we've established they've got 5 goals. They're just afraid to pick one in case it's the wrong one. Very, very few people, in fact, less than 2% of the people that come to me with saying, oh, I don't know what my goal is. That's true. Most people have got tons of ideas. They're just afraid to have a go in case it's the wrong thing. So what I suggest to people is an exercise taught to me by the great Peter Thompson called the White Room exercise, where you write everything down you want to do on a piece of paper. You then get another piece of paper, and you can only take half of the things from that white room into this white room. And you're not saying no to the rest, you're just saying not yet. So you take half of the things, and they're the most exciting things, into the next room. Then get another piece of paper, repeat the exercise until you've got 2 things or 1 thing left. and then you research deep. You get some experience. You speak to people in that industry who have done that thing, and you find out if it is something you want to do. If not, no worries. You go back to that page and do one of the other things. If it is, drill deeper still, take action, and you'll be on your way. You'll be on your way.
Love it. I absolutely love it. So before we look at rounding up, a couple of things that I would love to know from you. So as someone that has continued to research for 2 decades, you speak to thousands of people in any given month. What are some habits that for you are like non-negotiable habits that enable you to operate at the levels that you operate?
Do it or don't. Do it or don't. You know, I'm prepared to fail. In the past, I was terrified of failure, whereas now I just do it or I don't do it. And if I do it, I go big, and I'm prepared occasionally to fail, knowing that frequently you'll end up achieving big. Define for yourself a crucible moment. Excuses. I talked about excuses earlier. Sat Sembi said, you know, get to a point where you know you've got no excuses left. And when he said that to me, I said, okay, David, what is the moment when you, as a professional speaker, can no longer say, oh, I'll be all right when I'm okay at speaking? What is the moment when you can say, I've got no more excuses? And mockingly in my head, I said, I know, in my home city of Birmingham, Symphony Hall, the ICC, main hall, big conference, 1,000 people plus, full fee, corporate gig, and I get a standing ovation. If that happens, I've got no more excuses. 2.5 years later, I was standing on an in the round stage in the main hall of the main room of the ICC at Symphony Hall, Birmingham, my home city, a corporate audience, full fee, to a standing ovation. And as I walked off that stage, I was both the happiest and the most terrified I've ever been in my life. Because if it is truly a crucible moment and you take yourself seriously, when that happens, you've got no more excuses. So I want you one by one. You know, I'm not a fan of exposure therapy. You know, hey, just charge it everything. No, remove your excuses one by one until you've got nothing left except the way forward. Get yourself a crucible moment. The last defining thing that is, and again, I've nicked it from Top Achieve as well. It's get a mastermind group. I'm in at least one all the time, sometimes two. And I know you facilitate a mastermind group, Will. So, I mean, I'm going to tell you to suck eggs here, mate. But the people in Will's mastermind group, and he's not paying me to say this, by the way, they will be receiving not only excellent value, superb knowledge about how to grow their business massively and personally, but they will be getting the two things we talked about earlier that most people avoid, that top achievers seek, which is support and accountability. Everyone in our lives has got an agenda for us and our time, apart from our friends in the mastermind group who will eyeball you and go, you said you were going to do that. You haven't done it. Not good enough. Step up. They won't listen to your flim flam and your feeble excuses. Either do it or shut up. So get support, get accountability. So I should explain, a mastermind group is a little group of peers, men and women who are at or above your level with different skill sets to your own, very diverse people, not your mates. Because your mates, he just ends up as a fireside chat. So get people who will eyeball you and support you and hold you accountable over the course of a year to achieve big. Be in a mastermind group.
Love it, love it, love it. So plenty of wisdom there of what already you're doing personally, and obviously so much is shared. So one question that I would love to, or one question I'd love to finish on, I suppose, for someone that again has had the length of experience that you've had, that's had the ability of working with all the people that you have and the things that you've done, the incredible achievements throughout your lifetime, which might I add that you recently achieved a lifetime achievement at the Institute of Sales Management. I'm right in saying so. Congratulations in achieving that. One of many awards that you've won over the years. I know that for sure. If you could go back and you could share with a young David Hyner at the age of, say, 15 years old, one message and whisper those soft nothings into his ear, what would that message be?
I could give you all sorts of spin and PR answers, Will. But the honest answer is, if I could whisper, whoa, this is emotional, I would whisper in my 15-year-old self's ear and I'll go, mate, one day you're going to have a boy. And his laughter is going to be the single most inspiring and motivating noise you will ever hear in your life. Stop worrying about what other people think of you, because their opinion is meaningless. You need to grow a pair and stop hanging around with cows trying to impress people who have got absolutely no bearing on the direction and your future for your life. Go and make a start. Don't wait till you're 30 to wake up. Start today, because you've got a future.
Incredible. Thank you very much. Really, thank you very much. Well, David, look, it's been an absolute pleasure, as it always is, hanging out with you, my friend. For people that have been listening to this and going, I also think he's one of the funniest brummies that I've ever met, and he's got a wealth of knowledge that's not only going to make me laugh, but he's also going to be able to teach me a thing or two. If people want to come and find you, and I don't mean come and hunt you down, that living down your street and be knocking on windows and sort of doing the whole sort of, what's that film where they... Here's Johnny.
The Shining. Yeah,
exactly. We don't advise that. That would be something that wouldn't be very nice to do. But if they do want to come and find you, connect with you, where can people find you and connect with you?
Well, I said it was The Shining. No, it was Psycho. It was Psycho. Right. Yeah. So this is how you get in touch, guys. Just put my name, David Hyner, Hyner, into the internet. I'm over it like a rash you don't want to speak to your doctor about. You can leave me a recommendation on LinkedIn. You can do my massive goals video training courses, or if you're interested in being a purpose or a massive goals coach, drop me a line, have a chat. But get in touch. I'll happily answer any questions you've got. And YouTube, normal stuff. I'm over it. Yeah, I'm everywhere, mate. Just put my name in, up it comes like a rash.
Love it. No, put my name in. It'll come up everywhere like a rash. Brilliant. David, thank you again so much. And again, thank you for listening. I'm sure you found this an incredibly insightful episode, a wealth of wisdom, some great knowledge bombs that have been dropped on this episode. Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you for listening. And until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.